to die. Some of us think that this time belongs to us, that we are the owners of time. We buy the clocks, we buy the watches, the smartphones with an alarm to startle us out of our sleep. Ha ha, this time is not ours, it belongs to God. Now what you do with your time, you will discover sooner or later is yours. What are you going to do with the time of your life? Graduates, you have made yourselves do time for 5 months. This was not spent in prison. It was not in jail. It was not on the street somewhere squandering it away recklessly and carelessly. But you have used this time to go inside your head, searching out your heart and using your hands to redeem it. Redo it and move on. This precious gift of time given to you by the God of this universe, you have invested in the altitude of knowing something, of knowledge, of wisdom, of taking this gift of time and growing it into many future years of time, where you can exercise all of the time spoken of in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 8, which says, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which has been planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to reap and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. Graduates, this is your time. Good evening again to all of you, the mothers, the fathers, the wives, the friends, the partners, the family that has come to bid you a fare thee well. Thank you to my partner, Dr. Michael, and the pastor of this church, Faith Ministries International, Pastor Emmanuel O'Delly, and also to Deacon Sam Flyan and his son, who's usually the videographer. Thank all of you for the time, okay, that you have taken to attend. So our agenda for today, we've done the processional, the prayer, and the pledge. Now we'll ask you guys to pull out your lyrics to lift every voice, and we're gonna stand and sing that together. Lift every voice. this time, next in the program, we have a reading entitled The College Built on Prayer. This is something that we have placed in our curriculum for our students to capstone off the fact that they know something, they're about something, and they're going to be about something when they leave here. And so this reading comes from A College Built on Prayer. It's based on Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, who was a woman back in the 19th century, 20th century actually, because we're in the 21st century, so the 20th century, who actually started a school with nothing, next to nothing, and it has grown into what is now known as Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach, Florida. So we're going to have our students come up and we'll ask you to give them your undivided attention, no matter how boring it may sound. I'm going to be up here with them because we have some of our graduates were not able to make the graduation. By the way, we have one young lady whose mother right now is in the hospital in Mississippi. She was one of our online students, and so she absolutely is attending to her mom, who is on oxygen. And so your prayers, our prayers are with that family, and that was Miss Rayla Chapman. So when they come up, I'm going to help them out, okay, because the readers who were not able to do their reading, I will help them. So, ladies and gentlemen, will you please come forward? I have Miss Erica Ann and Mr. Dalton come forward. All right, so I'll start off and then you got some really good places, all right. So it says, The College Built on Prayer, the incredible story of the life of Mary McLeod Bethune, written by Jesse Walter Dees Jr., a Bethune-Cookman faculty member and an author of Mary McLeod Bethune. This amazing story gives the circumstances of Mrs. Bethune's birth, some 10 years removed from slavery, and of her struggle in the South to secure a bare elementary education. It tells of her prayers in behalf of her own desire for learning, and her prayers that all of the unfortunate sons of the captives might rise from the ignorance and squalor of American slave life. Her determination to build a school in Florida and her vigilance in pursuing the dream, even against heavy odds, make the kind of story that America loves and follows with pride and fascination. The remarkable story of Mary McLeod Bethune is a living testimony to all America and the American way of life. For only in America could the 15th child of slave parents achieve such acclaim as one of the 10 most influential women in the world, First Lady of color in the world, and U.S. presidential advisor. Mary Jane McLeod was born 77 years ago in a small wooden cabin near Maysville, South Carolina. Her parents continued to work for their former masters until they were able to secure a few acres of cotton land for themselves. The cotton fields were plowed by the old family mule, affectionately called Old Bush, because of his bushy tail. Later, however, when Old Bush suddenly dropped dead, there was nothing for Mary Jane to do except to pull her turn at the plow in Old Bush's place. After many long months of chopping crabgrass, she would visit the handsome homes of the white families when her mother delivered the wash. Oh, she would say, if only I could live in a house with glass windows. Mary Jane reasoned that these moneyed people were different and that their differences came about because they read books. And so Mary prayed that God would let her learn to read and get educated. Dear God, she pleaded, help me to get educated. Please help me to read the Bible. Oh Lord, deliver me from this crabgrass. Mary Jane reasoned that these moneyed people were different and that their differences came about because they read books. And the Lord did answer her prayer. One day in September, when Mary Jane was 9 years old, after she had picked in her burlap sack over 250 pounds of cotton, one Miss Wilson, a Negro missionary from the board of the Presbyterian Church, stopped at the McLeod plantation. When the McLeods were asked if they could spare at least one child to attend the new school that was being located at Maysville, the mother picked out Mary Jane because she is so different. A homely child, but the brightest, said the father. At that time, there were no schools for Negroes less than 300 miles away, and Mary Jane trudged back and forth the narrow dirt road to the one-room school where she learned to read and use numbers. One day in school, Miss Wilson presented Mary Jane with the Bible. Turning to John 3:16, Mary Jane read, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." Whosoever, not black or white, just whosoever. It was then that Mary Jane first knew what was to be her life work. After supper, she taught the rest of the McLeods and the neighbors what she had learned for the day. But when she had learned all that the local school offered, Mary Jane had to return to the cotton fields. It seemed that any further plans for an education had crashed. Again, she prayed to God, "Lord, deliver me. Lord, help me to go to school again, the way you did before." The second prayer was answered when Mary Christman, a Quaker lady from Denver, awarded Mary Jane a scholarship to Scotia Seminary in Concord, North Carolina. It was at Scotia that she learned about the Christian teachings of the brotherhood of man and equality. And it was here that Mary Jane was awakened by a strong religious calling. From that time on, she dedicated her life to becoming a missionary to darkest Africa. Again, God answered her prayer when Miss Mary Christman awarded her another scholarship to Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, where she studied to be a missionary. At Moody Institute, she found herself the only Negro among white girls. When the Moody Institute established new missions, Mary Jane McLeod toured the Northwest on a gospel team as chief vocalist. Back in Chicago, she also sang and preached in some of the notorious Skid Row missions. Upon graduation from Moody Institute, Mary Jane McLeod was greatly disappointed that there was no opening at that time for her as a missionary in Africa. "Thy will be done," she said softly, and that year she taught at Haynes Institute in Augusta, Georgia, where she organized a children's chorus and scrubbed the children's faces and begged for clothing and shoes for the needy. At the age of 24, while teaching at Sumter, South Carolina, where she was sent to assist in another mission school, she met a shy teacher named Albertus Bethune. They were married in 1898, and her only son, Albert, was born in Savannah, Georgia, where Mr. Bethune opened up a tailor shop.
Becoming more and more restless in her concern for her son and the other children, Miss Bethune felt a calm to teach at Palatka, Florida, and possible to establish her own school for girls. During this time, a railroad was being built along the east coast of Florida by Negro laborers. Miss Bethune had heard that there was great need at Daytona Beach, where many Negroes were said to live in poverty, vice, and squalid conditions. God seemed to direct her to Daytona Beach. It was too late to return when her Palatka house burned down and later her husband died. Arriving in Daytona Beach with only her personal belongings and her 5-year-old son, Albert, Miss Bethune found living conditions worse than she had ever expected. And she found in Daytona Beach that the Negro population was indifferent to her dream of a new school. She feared trouble because of recent activity of the Ku Klux Klan. Where's the other page? That's not the page. Where's that other page? Not that much.
All right. Okay. Before Rayla steps in, we had this all set up, guys, for the parts that I'm reading are from the graduates who weren't able to attend. Please forgive us. In September 1904, Mrs. Bethune found an empty shack on Oak Street, a few blocks from the railroad tracks that the owner said he would rent for $11 a month. When all that Mrs. Bethune could offer was $1.50, the owner trusted her for the rent while she sold sweet potato pies to pay the rest. With nearby neighbors, she went to the city dump heaps and to the refuse piles behind famous resort hotels in Daytona. Here she found cracked dishes, bits of broken furniture, old brooms, lamps, clothing, and bedclothes. The furniture of her school consisted of packing crates and boxes and upturned baskets for chairs. Pencils were made from charred wood, and ink was made from the juice of wild elderberries. On October 13, 1904, 1904, Mrs. Bethune's school was founded under the name of Daytona Educational and Industrial Training School for Negro girls. Mrs. Bethune was the teacher and principal. The students consisted of 5 little girls whose parents agreed to pay 50 cents a week tuition and her 5-year-old son Albert. The first day of school began with a hymn, Leaning on the Everlasting Arms, and the 23rd Psalm, The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The curriculum at this first school placed great emphasis on domestic and industrial training. The girls learned crafts and homemaking. The students were taught to cook and sew along with reading, writing, and arithmetic. Mrs. Bethune wrote on the school blackboard, "Be an artist in all that you do." Get ready, Erica. The emphasis was upon head, heart, and hand. In order to raise funds and to make friends for her school, Mrs. Bethune trained the 5 little girls and her son Albert into a marvelous choir. The Bethune choral group sang spirituals and hymns in some of the finest homes, churches, and hotels in fashionable Daytona Beach.
People were generous, and among Mrs. Bethune's earliest friends were the industrialist Henry J. Casser, who used to carry Mrs. Bethune and her troupe in his private boat to the fashionable hotels for their singing appointments. And at the Ormond Hotel, she frequently entertained the fabulous John D. Rockefeller, who enjoyed the music immersively and also passed out dimes and gifts to the singers. John D. Rockefeller remained a fast friend to Mrs. Bethune for many years, and before he died, he gave many generous gifts to the school, and also his personal copy of the Armist Good Morning. Later, John D. Jr. presented Mrs. Bethune his father's family organ. Today, almost 50 years later, Mrs. Bethune is an intimate friend of Woodrow Rockefeller, a grandson of John D. Rockefeller.
Within 2 years, Mrs. Bethune's school had 4 teachers and mushroomed into 250 pupils, most of them boarding students who lived mainly on black-eyed peas and hominy grits. Finding it difficult to feed the students and also to pay the rent, Mrs. Bethune decided to build her own schoolhouse. The only location available was the city dump known as Hell's Hole, full of tin cans, bottles, garbage, frogs, and thousands of mosquitoes. The owner agreed to sell the land for $200 with $5 down and the balance to be paid in 2 years. Mrs. Bethune returned a few days later after selling sweet potato pies and ice cream to the Negro Railroad workers with her down payment. And in order to raise funds further for her school, she spoke or sang with her group all over the community, begged money, rang doorbells, and distributed leaflets, riding around town on her little bicycle. Mrs. Bethune also wrote personal letters to strangers who were wealthy vacationists, selecting the names from the Florida newspapers.
One of those to whom she wrote was James M. Gamble, and she asked him to be a trustee of her school. When Miss Bethune rode her bicycle out to the fashionable Gamble residence, she impressed the wealthy industrialists, I cannot pronounce that word at all, with her enthusiasm and sincerity. And he agreed to visit her school somewhat shocked and bewildered by the shabby surroundings and the curved desks and furniture. Mr. Gamble inquired about the school which he had been asked to serve. "It is in my mind," Mr. Gamble said, Miss Bethune, "and in my soul." Whereupon Mr. Gamble agreed to be the first trustee of the school and immediately donated $150 for expenses. Thus, in a slow way, Bethune-Cookman grew from the struggling primary school to one of the important colleges of the Deep South. From an opening class of 6 children to 300 college students, from an national capital of 1.50 to a plant valued above $1 million. Soon the friends of Miss Bethune's astounding educational venture were more and more like a large corporation meeting of prominent stockholders. Mr. Thomas H. White had heard the choir sing at the Palmetto Hotel. Shortly afterward, he recognized Miss Bethune riding her bicycle as he was riding around Daytona Beach in a fancy limousine. Mr. White picked up Miss Bethune and drove out to visit the school. Like Mr. Gamble, he too was shocked at the crude beginnings, but he was so impressed with the spirit of the place that he donated $200 for supplies, including a new white sewing machine. He assured Miss Bethune that this was the most promising venture he had seen in Florida, and later he said his donations were the best way he had ever spent his money. When he died, Mr. White left a trust fund of $67,000, which helped to build the main assembly hall of the school, known as White Hall. In order to build her own new school, Miss Bethune secured free materials and supplies by pulling on the coattails of contractors for second-hand bricks and building materials, and she secured free laborers from many of the students' relatives in exchange for tuition. She also organized free parties for carpenters and builders and introduced them to donate freely.
In order to build her own school, Mrs. December. In 1907, the first new building was finished. They called it Faith Hall. Across the road from Faith Hall, Mrs. Bethune and her students raised fruit and vegetables, which they sold to the wealthy tourists from the north. One of the tourists especially liked Mrs. Bethune carrots was a Miss Florence Curtis. When she died, she left the school a large amount, which helped build the present dormitory for girls. Soon after this, Mrs. Bethune began teaching her students how to vote. And when she was visited by the mass-shooter riders of the Ku Klux Klan, they came on horseback and carried crosses with guns and bellowed of weird horns as a warning to the Negroes not to vote. The Negro girls were frightened, but Mrs. Bethune ordered all the lights on the campus to be ignited, and they sung, "Be not dismayed, whatever betide, God will take care of you." We sang them right off the campus, said Mrs. Bethune, and the next day we all voted too. In 1923, her school had grown into a junior college, and it was merged into the old Cockman Institute of Jacksonville's Miss Bethune and Cockman College. Mrs. Bethune continued as president and one of these nation's leading educators. Mrs. Bethune made many friends and spoke to countless meetings, organizations, and church groups, becoming known as one of America's most powerful orators. Because of this wide prominence throughout America, Miss Mary McLeod Bethune has been a close friend and confidant of 5 presidents. She was a personal friend of Theodore Roosevelt, a friend and advisor to President Coolidge and President Hoover. And during the last 25 years, she has been a friend and advisor to both President Roosevelt and President Truman. Her most dramatic meeting came in 1934 when Mrs. Bethune was expressly invited to the White House to discuss the National Youth Administration Program. Mrs. Bethune pleaded so efficiently in behalf of the young Negro in his needs, but when she was done finished speaking, there were tears on President Roosevelt's cheeks. Later at another meeting, when President Roosevelt chose Mrs. Bethune to represent the Negro youth as a special NYA advisor, the president said to his counselor, Aubrey Williams, Mrs. Bethune is a great woman. I believe in her. She has her feet on the ground, not only on the ground, but in the plowed soil. I should never forget that compliment, said Mrs. Bethune.
Let's give him a hand, please. That takes a lot of courage, guys, to get up behind this microphone. So let's give them another hand. All right, so at this time, we have our keynote, which is Dr. Michael, and I want to tell you something about this man, okay? A lot of you don't know. When you see him around, you don't know what his background is. So I'm here to tell you. He has been a certified nutrition specialist. First off, he has all the degrees that you can get, okay? All of the degrees that you can get from a university. He's a graduate of, let me back up here. Well, let's just use his, oh, here we go. Let's back all the way up. He graduated from Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda. He's graduated from Wageningen Agricultural University in Holland with a degree in soil science, by the way. From Makerere, it was a degree in BS in agriculture. He graduated from Alabama A&M University in Norma, Alabama with an MS, a master's degree in food science. He went to Alabama A&M University, food science, again, I think I said that twice. The University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, Arkansas. He was a research scientist for 2 years. He graduated from the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana with a PhD in food science and human nutrition. He also was a postdoctoral research scientist at the University of Champaign-Urbana. Now let me tell you what he's done. To date, and those of you that need a nutritionist, there's your guy right there. To date, he's a certified nutrition specialist. He performed nutrition assessments, nutrition intervention, monitoring, and evaluation for individuals, families, or group needs. His background was in medical nutrition therapy, the disease aspects of nutrition, total body detox, carbs, proteins, lipids, vitamins, minerals, energy balance and weight control, digestion, absorption, life cycles, nutrition and organ disorders, teaching and research to enhance recovery, promotion, healing, and to improve health. He knows how to plan, and he has done menu planning from 2004 up until present. He can provide you with tables of weekly, quick and easy, need to prepare meal plans and shopping tips, grocery lists, and estimated costs for different family sizes. How to use dried fruits, leftovers, convenience food, experimenting with new fruits and vegetables. The results are participants become wise shoppers. He has been a community nutrition education done seminars and workshops from 2006 to present. I'm just telling you what you're working with here. From 2005 to 2011, he's a dietary service manager in culinary arts. He's worked with the state as a public health family nutritionist, reducing the incidences of anemia and obesity in women, infants, and children, the incidences of gestational diabetes by 20%, reduce pre-existing and pregnancy-induced hypertension by 11%. This is your guy. He has done to present, from 2004 to present, he's a medical nutrition therapist. The results are remarkable improvements in the health of clients who participated. That includes everything from supporting outpatients in under the supervision of a physician, a medical doctor, including for diabetes, cancer, adrenal gland, alcoholic cardiovascular disease, arthritis, asthma, obese and overweightness, chronic fatigue syndrome, cholesterol, cirrhosis of the liver, colitis, depression, hypertension, ulcers, constipation, and other gastrointestinal diseases, insomnia, low energy patients, and many more, okay? He has done community weight management from 2006 to present, supervising weight management programs that embrace body fat evaluation, dietary modification, exercise, lifestyle support, breathing techniques, and group support. The results: increased number of breastfeeding mothers by 10%, reduced the overweight of people by 15%, and the underweights by 5%. And from 2014 to current, he has been doing nutrition education. This that he does with the JM Institute is his community service to the community. And for those of you that want to know, we make no money off of this, I promise you. It is not for making money. It is a service to the community. We have students that come to us every other day wanting to complete their high school diploma. And you have Dr. Michael here with all of this education and all of this background and all of this knowledge, who is providing teaching math and science. And also you can call us, and once you finish this program, you can call us and we will even help direct you to further education, further training, okay? So that's who you're dealing with right here. So without further ado, by the way, he is the father of 7 children. 6 of them are college graduated. The oldest one has a PhD, okay? So this is good for our community.
Yes.
So you need to get the word out. We are not playing. We have been doing this program since we graduated the first group of 9 students in 2013, guys, very quietly, here in the city of Springfield. We have graduated to date almost 900 people through this program. From Springfield, from Galesburg, from Newtown, from Iowa. This is your guy right here. So let's give him a hand. He's going to come up and talk to you.
Lord have mercy.
Dr. Jennifer, thank you very much for that lengthy introduction. I'm here today to represent not only our school, or sometimes we call them institute, and our students. First, let me start like this. Today is June 2. Graduates of 2024. Good evening, families, spouses, grandmoms, grandparents, friends, staff, faculty, and friends of our graduates. Welcome to the 2024 class graduation ceremony. And let me pause here a little bit. You probably have already picked up my accent, that I don't speak straight American English because I originate from the bush of Africa all the way to here. And I learned English and I became part of you. So if you don't pick up a word that I'm pronouncing, it's because of that. All right? So congratulations, graduates Erica, Dalton, Stacy, and Rayla. We could have had 5 of them here, but the other 3 students, for various reasons, one from Missouri, one from Mississippi, and one from within the city, are not able to make it today. You have worked very hard and accomplished one of your major milestones of your life today by attending our 5 months or 16 weeks of high school completion program. Mark this very well. High school completion program simply means these students, these great students you're seeing here, started like all other Americans from elementary, middle school, then jump into high school, and then for many different reasons, they stepped out. We don't even call them dropout. They stepped out, taking care of families and doing a lot of other things. And then when they heard about us, they said, oh, you help people complete their high school program? Do you give high school diploma? We tell them, that is yes. That is exactly what we do here. We followed the law of the state of Illinois, and that's what we've been doing. And it is the only program offered in the capital of state of Illinois that helps students of their caliber to finish the high school diploma and get real high school diploma. To see them line up here.